You probably heard about the new Super Mario RPG Remake that's coming out in November, and I'm super excited that they're bringing back Yoko Shimomura for this. And of course, if you've seen the trailer, you may have heard of the battle against a somewhat stronger monster. And of course, me being a gamer from the 90s, this song pretty much lives rent free in my head. So I decided to do a video about it today, and we're going to break it down, and I'm also going to give you my own remastered version of the battle against the somewhat stronger monster. So check it out. Okay, so we have here the original track as well as the remake. And what I like to do is I like to share with you the original track. We'll listen to like a couple of seconds of it, and then we'll move on over to the new track that just came out for the remake. And then we're going to compare that with the my breakdown as well as my own arrangement or my own transcription of this. Okay, we'll stop it right there. And so those are the elements that I remember from the video game. The record scratch, the hand claps, the snare, the rolls, and as well as the muted trumpet. Let's listen to the remake now and compare those two. Okay, so there are some really, really amazing elements in there. I really do enjoy the muted trumpet. It sounds like really, I don't know what word for it that I can explain it with, but it's just like it's in the groove. It's like it sounds really nasty, and I like it because that's the muted trumpet, and the enemies that you're fighting against, it kind of lends to that as well. There were a couple of things that I missed, which was the record scratch, as well as the clap on the backhand side, or the loud snare stick. As well, the sound effects kind of get in the way, and of course, this was directly from the trailer as well, so you will be getting that because that is in the game. But those elements that I missed was definitely the record scratch, and the beginning. If you noticed, it sounded somewhat clumsy in the brass section. Right, so those hand claps were in there, but the brass sounded a little bit clumsy. I didn't hear the bass line at the bottom, and something with those toms that just felt a little bit off for me. So let's go back to the original, and let's listen to it. So those are the elements, and I think I don't think I heard the tambourine. Okay, yeah, I did. Yeah, so it is in the background, which is great. What I'm going to do now is share with you what I have, what I derived for myself, and usually my process behind this is that I take each element as separately as possible. I slow it down so I can hear everything, and then I just write it out by ear. And after that, I'll do a check with the original, make sure that I'm in the right tempo, I'm in the right key signature, time signature, and then if I really do need to, I'll delve into the actual SF2 document where I have on my PC that I can actually listen to each element separately to bring it about. So here's what I made for you, and let's listen to a little bit of it, and we'll talk about each element. Okay, so we have those same elements that you have in the original, as well as a couple of things just added. I added a little bit more of the bass, a little bit more of some strings on the bottom, because I wanted it to kind of represent this enemy that kind of creeps up on you on the low. I believe it was G sharp and A. Let me find it here really quick. So let's isolate those elements, and I think the low string section should have it here. Here we go. So our contrabasses and cellos. Let's listen to them at the very beginning. Oh, wait, they don't come in at the beginning. They come in right here. So just to kind of give that build up, but without really distracting, taking away from the muted trumpet that's doing that. So let's add the muted trumpet in by itself, and let's see what we got. Right here. Now, I wanted a better sound font for this, but this is the only one I could find that really worked. That the one from the remake sounded really nice, and if I can grab that, I would use it. But for the most part, this is what we got here. And let's see if we can isolate those. Let's bring all those elements back together and see what we got. And what I'll do is I'll toggle between the original and what I made so you can hear the difference. And we'll toggle like about every measure or so. Right, so that's the element here, and those are the elements that I really missed. That record scratch, what they did in the remake was pretty cool, but it was, for me, it felt a little bit jumpy, like it wasn't a surprise. What I'm talking about is right here at about measure, I believe measure 10. No, at about measure 8. Let's try that. Yeah, so many sound effects that kind of take away from that, and let's see what the passage is supposed to sound like. There we go. So this is the passage I was talking about. My apologies. So let's take a look at it from here. Pull it back just a little bit. So those preemptive strikes, right, the bum 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 da dum, which was very cool, but I actually missed the original. So let's listen to the original and what they actually did there. So you notice at the bottom, it just went, it just did a scale all the way up to the top. And what I did was I enhanced that scale by giving it to all the different instruments so that you can actually feel that rush into the highest transient point of the piece, where it goes a little, before it starts to go to the whirlwind of craziness here. So here's what I did for it. All right, so those, we're going to talk about this next part, the orchestral hits. They were a lot of fun to do, actually. So what I did was, instead of doing them like just doing an orchestral hit sample, I went ahead and added some marcato strings, a full string section, some tubas, some full brass section, an orchestra kit for a little bit more of that low end and high cymbal response, and a timpani that is doubled an octave down, just to kind of give it a little bit more beef. And here's what we got. All right, so that's the entire section before it loops. Let's listen to what the original has for us. you'll notice that just due to the limitations of the Super Nintendo or the Super Famicom, not all the instruments could be in there. So what I did was I enhanced those instruments by giving it a fuller section without pulling away from the transient response of the orchestral hits. And you'll notice that the orchestral hits are really short. And my issue with the remake was that the orchestral hits were being prolonged by just another like half a beat or so, maybe another eighth note, and it kind of ruins a little bit of the transient part of it, like the hit and release. Whereas it hit and it's sustained, and you lose a little bit of the attack there. So let's listen to it. And this is a very small thing. Just before I get into this smaller thing, I really do enjoy the whirlwind of the winds going back and forth, and just kind of walking up in whole tones. And I'll show you that effect that I added later on, not for the first half, but for the second half. My issue actually occurs here at the very end, and listen to it one more time. What the bass does. So there's a strong draw. So I'll go ahead and go to the upright bass so you can hear it here. And here's my little keyboard so you can see. So there's a strong draw. Let me hear. There we go. You'll notice that the bass section, oh, sorry about that. Let me pull this up for you so you can see it. Let's go one more octave. There we go. So here's what it's doing, right? So E, E, B. Now, if you listen to the original, it doesn't do that. It actually goes E, E, D sharp. So let's take a listen. So the draw is actually only a half step. And what happens is, and this is a small thing, just for me and for future reference, is that the bass tends to have the most gravitational force in terms of our ear. And when you move it down to the fifth, it does feel like it's completing a cadence. Whereas if you're doing a half step, going from E to D sharp, in this case, it feels a little bit more, there's more of an instability in this case. Now, the idea is that you're battling against a somewhat stronger monster. And when you go, for me, just whenever I hear this, when it goes down to the B, it sounds like it's stable. It's doing a 5, a 5 of 5 back to 5. So let me pull it up here so you can hear it. Let's remove the solo. So it sounds like, and then, so it sounds like it's doing a 5 of 5 to 5 to 1, and I don't really want that. I want that. What I wanted to hear was more of like just a tilt down or a sequence down and then a back, right? And so the draw there kind of felt like I was going home as opposed to just going to the next part of the battle. And that's a small thing, but for me it somewhat mattered. And once again, you may have heard the longer sustain on the orchestral hits. And let's listen to what I got here. And the sustain, if you notice, it hits, and then the sustain is very, very slight, simply because of reverb, right? We have to make room for that. But you'll notice that the hits are really strong in here. So there you have it. So that's the entire phrase, and it loops. And you'll notice about Super Mario Brothers, just in general, the loops are somewhat small, but they repeat and they complete a certain phrase. My favorite is what the trumpet does. So let's take a look and listen to the trumpet here, just right where it begins. So we have this. Let me go up the octave here. So it goes from E, walking up a major scale, and then it moves up, and you have this A minor with a sharp 6, so almost like, right? So A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. So let's see if I can bring it up on the keyboard here. Just kind of slow down a little bit. It's the beauty of having too many keys, is that you can't see it all. There we go. So here we go. Right, and then it changes. And let's listen to that in time. All right, so that's C minor, right? Yeah, some very cool stuff. And Yoko does such an amazing part, just introducing that theme, and then read the thing about the theme itself. It's so short, but it's so meaningful in this part. And then when it changes to the next part, here. So for me personally, I would have liked to have heard just a little bit more on the remake there. Yeah, a little bit more trumpet there, because you have these strings that kind of like jump in front of the trumpet, as opposed to allowing the muted trumpet to just kind of live a little bit like this. And so that's the surprise, right? You're fighting against a stronger monster, and the monster just kind of jumps right, like really jumps at you. And it does that in the original as well, which is what I tried to preserve. If you listen closely, it does it in the bass, but I just kind of spread it out with the other instruments. All right, now let's take a look at the very beginning here now. My favorite is the 5/8 measure that you may have noticed at the very beginning. It took me a while. I was figuring out, okay, how many beats are there that's going on. I did all this by ear, tried not to use any other references, and it turns out that there is a 5/8 measure that occurs right here. Let's see if we can zoom that in a little bit. There we go. And let's listen to the original. And you will also notice that I went ahead and synced by ear using the original track, pulling it all the way, and just kind of checking all where the downbeats are. And it turns out that it's actually 120.5. The Battle Remake is actually slightly faster, and it was offset by just a little bit as we got later on into the listening example here. But for the most part, the 120.5 puts it exactly at what the game specifies. So let's listen to the beginning. Yeah, so that's kind of, well, it was a little weird to count. So let's listen to that 5/8. So he goes. One more time, but this time with the remake. All right, and this time with the remaster that I made. Here we go. So there you have it. All these elements are really, really cool. And for now, as we're getting toward the end of this video, I'd like to show you just what each element sounds like by itself. So here is the lead and the bass, and listen to the bass at the beginning. It does some pretty amazing acrobatics in terms of what the bass line does, and it really adds to the original, the quality and the efficacy of the original piece that I sort of missed in the remake. So let's listen to the lead, which is the lead trumpet, and just the bass from the beginning. Those half steps, really important in the piece. And then you have that little fall at the end, which is also what I missed. I needed that that fall at the very end, and they don't do that in the remake. They just hold the note, because the 5-1, there's some stability. You hold the note, and there's a little bit more stability there. And so these elements are just really small, and they don't take away necessarily from the remake. It's just these are things that I, as a listener, miss, especially playing the game, 95, 96 when it came out. It came out in 95, I believe, or 94. I'll have to check the dates on you again, but I didn't play it until like 95 or 96. And so those are the elements that I miss. And let's listen to the percussion by itself. And it does some crazy things when I was listening to it, trying to isolate each element as best as I could. You'll notice that I have the snare hit as well as the record scratch, in addition to a couple of other elements to kind of add a little bit more realism to the original. So here we go. The timpani coming in. Very important. So there you go, and there's the percussion elements. And then just for time here, since we're almost at the 30-minute mark, we're going to listen to the brass strings. And I decided clarinet because you'll notice that in the original game format, the clarinet was quite dominant in a lot of the music here. So I didn't add any other woodwinds. I just added clarinets, brass, and strings. So let's take a listen to those three elements together. And I also added a couple of things to kind of more of like just a support system for the bass and the mid-range to kind of give it a little bit more warmth and just a little bit more motion in the bottom without pulling away from the lead. So here we go here we go. Yeah, we'll start one measure in. So there you have it. They're all the elements together. And we're going to move on to this next part so I can share with you what I did with the high woodwinds and this little part that I really enjoyed from the remake, which was the winds kind of moving up and down. I didn't exactly do what they did. I just kind of moved. If you listen to it, it's mostly just whole tones and moving up and down the scale, about as high as you want and as low as you want it to go, because it is a whirlwind in this case. So let's take a listen to the second part. All the elements of this remaster. and then we will conclude. So you'll notice that it's actually in the background and it doesn't quite pull its weight. Let's listen to it in isolation, and this is all it does. It's pretty much just whole tones moving around. Yep, it's very light. So it stays out of the way. It's not the dominant thing. It still maintains the integrity of the piece, but incorporating a little bit of what I enjoyed from the remake. Let's listen to what the remake does, actually, right there. You'll notice how it's actually in the string section, which kind of really brings it home. And that's a really cool element, and I really appreciate that part of it. So there you have it. The remaster, my remaster, their remake, and the original. If you like this video, I am on Patreon now, and I would love it if you are able to just join me there. There's so many things that I have available for you. This is the first video that I'm doing for the Patreon, and there's so many more to go. It's not just video games. It's any kind of music, any music that you want as a patron of my Patreon, and anything that goes. And most of the things I do are live and in the moment. So if there are any edits, it's mostly just me messing up my words. But for the most part, the evaluation is done in real time. In this case, I did prepare. In this case, I did prepare each of the elements for you so that you can hear them and kind of work through them on your own. But what I'd like to do for you now is also offer this piece for you online. So this entire piece, this remake or this remaster that I made, transcription of the original, will be on YouTube for you in the link below as an appreciation and a thank you for watching this video. Thank you, everybody. My name is Tu Yang. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you next time.